This is Dead Serious, a show about short horror stories worthy of discussion. I'm Dead Palette, and I'm reading Ghost Stories, Spirit Shakers. Today we're going to be taking a look at a story from the Ghost Contest that we hosted at Undercooked Analysis a million years ago. This story is entitled, I Met a Man Who Played Magic the Gathering, by LionOhDay. Let's get right into it. When I was 21, I considered myself a total failure. I get now that I wasn't, but at the time, nothing could shake the cloud of depression that hung over me. I got into the college that I wanted, and the field that I wanted, but it was too hard, or I was too weak. After a horrible semester stacked onto 2 mediocre years, and then the realization I wasn't even halfway done with my academic path, I folded. No degree, but thousands in debt. Typical, right? I only spent a few weeks with my parents. They weren't pleased with my departure from higher education, and they weren't pleased with me taking up space in their home. So that's when I moved into an apartment complex. It was a pretty nice place. Lots of new parents. Apparently the park and trail nearby was a major draw for them. So I really like this opening part right here. There's a lot to talk about. It's coming off like a person who's getting drunk and telling you all of their life's problems. Not actually, because this is all happening in retrospect, and the implication of them saying, at the time I couldn't shake that cloud of depression that hung over me. It seems as though they have shaken off that temporary depression that, you know, when you're in the thick of it, it seems like it's never going to leave you behind. And what's more is it's telling a tale that I think a lot of people can relate to on some level. I mean, we've all been sad. We've all gone through some period in our life where it feels like we have to make some hard choices. And our narrator here is expressing the feelings of being let down when you think you are on a successful path of getting into the school you want and getting into the field that you want. This is something that I have struggled with, feeling anger when stuff doesn't go according to plans, feeling like you're a failure, feeling like these fucking episodes of Dead Serious should have come out a long-ass time ago, but eventually you'll get around and be successful if you stick at it, kids. Also, I know people who didn't graduate college who got stuck with the debt, and that's just a shitty situation where they'll just take your money and fuck you over. The only job I can find was running night security for a museum. It was pretty mind-numbing, and no, I don't have any stories about it. There wasn't any company, and there wasn't anything to do besides listen to podcasts and look at the art. I didn't have internet at my house, and on nights I didn't work, I would get so bored. I would get bored. Sometimes I would just lay on my couch and listen to the noisy neighbors on either side of me. Hearing their lives made me feel not as lonely. Though other times I hated that they seemed so happy. When the neighbors were silent, I would take to walking the trail near my apartment. That's when I met him, the man who played magic in the dead of night. So this idea I'm about to speak about is further elaborated on later in the story, but it's a running theme here of putting yourself into a box of depression and isolation when you don't need to. And so this character feels as though the only thing that they can do when they're not working is listen to what their neighbors are saying through the thin walls and be jealous of that when they just need to pull themselves out of that. And sometimes you need someone to pull you out of that slump for you, to just drag you by the arm, you know. And that's what this is setting up for. Then that's when I met that man, him, the man who played magic in the dead of night. What a simple, corny because of the magic, but beautiful line. It was Friday night, and by some miracle I didn't have work that evening. With all my free time in the world, I decided to take a walk along the trail. It was a pretty good neighborhood, but if I did run into anything, I had a pocket knife in my bag. Using my phone's flashlight, I navigated my way through the trail and enjoyed the sound of the nocturnal animals going about their day. Heck, back then, I was a nocturnal animal. Bit of friendly advice for anyone out there listening. If you haven't gone outside and just walked a nature trail at night for a while, do it. You will be rewarding yourself. There's something so pleasing and eerie at the same time about the sound of nocturnal animals going about their business. The trail was a large circle wrapping around a local forest. Between my apartment and the trail was the children's park. When I entered the trail, I didn't see anyone there, but on my return from the trail, I saw a lone figure sitting at one of the picnic tables set up by the park. The 4 picnic tables were set under one street light, its glow only showcasing the darkness at its edges. Nothing about that language is too flowery or out of the ordinary. It's all very plain until you get to the punctuation at the end. When I say punctuation, I don't mean periods. I mean the punctuating last line of the street lights glow only showcasing the darkness at its edges. That's perfect punctuation to a plain paragraph that is telling you in plain language, plain English, the scenario, the scenery. I must have been lonely. That's the only explanation for why at that moment I thought it was a good idea to talk to the man at the picnic table. He squatted on the picnic table bench, hunched over the table, his hands shuffling a deck of cards. The man wore a black hoodie with a skull design on its chest. He had the hood pulled up and covering his face, which made sense since it was pretty cold out. As I worked my way past the creaky swing, I called to the man, "Hey, what you got there?" He just waved at me. The way that our narrator is speaking is a symptom of that box that they had put themselves in at the time. They thought that it would be weird to talk to somebody out and about. What's weird about that? There's nothing really all that strange about talking to someone who presumably lives in your neighborhood. There would be a time in history where people would look at you strange for thinking there's something strange about talking to another human being, even if it is night out, especially in a nice neighborhood. Once I got to the picnic table, I could tell plainly that he was just shuffling magic cards. He was pretty engrossed in his cards, so I just kinda awkwardly walked away, my curiosity sufficiently satisfied. After getting back to my apartment, and after being reminded of magic, I wanted to find my old deck, and as soon as I found it in a box of my college dorm stuff, I used to play back in college, but since then I had let it drop to the wayside. Gripping my deck box, I walked back to the picnic table. I sat it down on the table, and I could see him eye it. "Do you want to play a couple rounds?" I asked the man. I think that this moment speaks to the loneliness in our character, that they saw that they were playing magic, that they were shuffling a magic deck, and then walked away. And then it's like an admission. It's not as simple as like walking up to them and talking to them. It is that they walked away. They refused to acknowledge that, man, I really want to sit down and play magic with this guy. Walked away, and then they're like, nah, I really do want to play magic. That makes this moment more impactful than if he's just like, hey, I'm going to run home and get my deck. The refusal adds impact to it. The call to arms and the refusal is more poignant that way. It was then that I heard him speak. It started out tentative, like someone who hadn't spoken in a long time, and is unsure if they can anymore. Yeah, that'd be great, he said, setting his deck down onto the table. Should be his. He didn't use card sleeves, and I could see matches upon matches of wear on his cards, the edges frayed and their faces scratched. I think that this is I really love the symbolism here of he's not using these card sleeves. If you don't know anything about Magic the Gathering, good for you, you're probably not a virgin. But if you don't know anything about Magic the Gathering, the culture around it, people get very competitive at times. There are a lot of people who are very friendly about it, though. But almost universally, people who play it collect the cards to also just collect the cards. There's a lot of money involved. A lot of money is changing hands with Magic the Gathering in terms of being able to trade cards in the secondary marketplace for that. And so everyone uses these really obnoxious card sleeves that bulk up your decks and make everything really cumbersome, but prevent your cards from getting scratched, because they will get wear and tear pretty quickly. Even though they make the cards out of nice material, they get scuffed up real easy and get frayed edges real easy. And I think the idea of this person playing with these frayed cards is not only a really, really subtly off-kilter, creepy thing, it is also much more substantively a thing that is indicating that he is only there to play. This person isn't there to collect. This person is there to play with another human being. I won't go into detail about the sets we played. Those are unimportant. What was significant to me was that the change in the man's demeanor. As we played each other, he seemed to calm down. He wasn't as nervous and spoke more confidently. His plays got better and better, and well, I won a few matches at the start. He ended up beating me in all of the later games. I must have lost track of time, however, somehow, since we played till morning. He used the newer set, one when I had dropped out, but mixed in were some older cards. Definitely not standard. Most significant was his Black Knight card. I could tell he cared about it because it was the only card that wasn't beat up. Later we'll look up the Black Knight card and found out it came from the beta set, which meant it was a fairly rare card and was valued at $50. As we finished our last match with his Kalitas swung for game, he looked at the sun rising and turned back to me with a smile on his face. "Thank you for playing with me," he said, putting his deck back into the pocket of his hoodie. So a decision was made at this part of the story, which is, are we going to let the narrator be able to understand the story without knowledge of Magic the Gathering, or are we going to go in detail about Magic the Gathering? The decision that I think that they made was that Magic the Gathering would not be a prerequisite. A few more things could be done in that way to help establish this story for people that don't know about Magic the Gathering. Very simply, just very simple facts of it is a trading card game. That's really about it. Would help that along. But my feeling, honestly, is that even as someone who doesn't play Magic the Gathering, I would much rather them go the other direction, more in depth. Not a whole lot much more. It could be something as simple as actually going in to detail about the sets that they used and everything like that. That's my feeling. I like those kinds of details. I like those things being brought up. I like people talking about stuff that they care about. And the person who wrote this cares about Magic the Gathering. This is a way for them to show off their geeky knowledge of something that I don't have an interest in. That stuff just gets me engaged. I don't know why. But bearing that in mind, we're putting extra emphasis on the Black Knight card since it's not beat up. And I think that that's a pretty cool little neat trick that I appreciate. We both stood up and I said, "Sure thing, man. You were great. Do you game around here?" At that question, the man laughed before replying that, no, but you should check out game theory, though. Though, the people there are nice, man. I don't know why you gotta shit on game theory so much. He then gave me a wave and walked off. As he did, a strong wind blew through, catching my deck and sending it flying off the table. I quickly dropped to the ground and picked up my dick. As I picked them up, though, I noticed one of his cards had slipped into mine. It was the Black Knight card. It had even slipped into a card sleeve of mine somehow. I quickly got up to call out to him, but when I did, I couldn't see him. So this is a part that would be seemingly ridiculous, if not grounded in everything that had happened up until this point. The idea of this card somehow getting sleeved in with his other cards. Supernatural as fuck. But that's what we're dealing with here, because it is a ghost story. Wonder who the ghost is. Once I had another day off, I made my way to the store the man had told me about. Game theory, figuring that someone there might know the guy and be able to return his card to him. The store was clean, but cluttered in the sort of way only a nerd store can. Comics, card and board games packed the shelves, waiting for anyone to find something they loved within its walls. It thankfully had a back section with several tables that was less messy and had room to move around. It was a really cool place. Man, I hate comic book stores. They are always cluttered to shit. Just not a place for someone with OCD. And I don't have OCD. I'm just saying, it's not a fun time for me. Arthur, the man I had met on the trail, had been a regular here, a constant fixture of their legacy games. See, again, legacy needs to be explained to someone who doesn't know that kind of stuff. Legacy just means all of the card sets? Like unlimited? I don't know. See, I don't know. You gotta explain that stuff to me. He never talked a lot, but kept coming back and people grew attached to him. He was a good person. I can agree with that. He was loved. It took the store owner longer to put the pieces together, but when he did, we both decided to hang a picture of art on the wall, framed with his Black Knight. What I didn't know was that during the summer, Arthur had died in a hit and run. Thanks, Arthur. So this is the twist of the story, and it's not a whole lot of a twist. It's not really all that surprising. We knew that Arthur, whoever this man in the black hoodie was going to be a ghost of some kind, right? And that they were playing a card game, and that this was someone who lost their life reaching out to someone who needed some help getting out of a bad place in their life. It's simple and clean and short and sweet, and it doesn't need to be anything bigger or more grandiose. It's serving its purpose as is. I hope that if you are feeling lonely and feeling trapped in a box and unable to get out, that there's someone there for you to pull you out of that situation, even if you don't want it. And similarly, I hope that I have been that person for someone in my life somewhere along the line. If the opportunity presents itself for you to play Magic with someone, whatever your Magic the Gathering is, please do that. It's much appreciated. Now, if you enjoyed that, consider helping out the community and supporting my channel. You can support the community by conversing in the comments below and going to creativehorror.com. That's creativehorror.com for horror-based podcasts like The Witching Hour, a bi-weekly podcast for the creative horror lover. You can support me by liking this video, following me on Twitter and Tumblr, links down in the description. Thank you so much for your time, and now on to our sponsor at this non-moment in time. Flaming Car Decal. Flaming Car Decal. It makes your car go the faster